This 20-year-old iPod looks newer than my iPhone, and I bought it on Shopee. Yeah, Shopee. A couple of weeks ago, I was scrolling my homepage on Shopee looking for something else, and this pops up. It was a listing for classic iPod Nano, and I check it out. And the seller is this wild store full of retro MP3 players and Walkmans. It's honestly pretty overwhelming to see everything like that. And the 5th gen iPod Classic, or I guess iPod Video back then, stood out to me. It looked pretty good in the description. It's something I've always wanted and enjoyed using whenever I could. Maybe about 7 years ago, I bought this secondhand on like Facebook Marketplace or one of those, sulit.com or something like that. And it kind of conked out pretty quickly. The back is scratched up and the battery is, I think, quite bloated. So this is kind of out of it. And quite often I find myself on this nostalgic trip, and what a great way to marry nostalgia, music, and tech. Things I find interesting into one thing, like an iPod Classic. And when it first arrived, I couldn't help but notice how shiny the back was. Again, I wasn't expecting this at all. It came with a classic set of earbuds and a 30-pin charger, which I haven't had or seen in forever. I have to say that the earbuds that came with it were kind of crappy. Not sure if that's really how they sounded back then or if this is not original, but either way, it probably isn't ideal. Not sure if you'll be able to see this, but in the front, there's some hairline-looking scratches up here on the display, but I guess that's fine given that most of it looks pretty pristine, honestly. Beyond that, the scroll wheel is super responsive. And that sound, yeah, that sound. And the display looks great. But the scroll wheel has a little bit of this like looseness to it. Like when I click on the button, it feels a little bit loose. Not sure if that's an issue with it because it's old, but yeah, I guess you can't expect much from a refurbished piece of tech. This did come with some upgrades. It now has 256 gig of storage, which is pretty wild considering it's just all songs probably. And of course, we're talking SSD. They also upgraded the battery, which means this thing should last up to 50 hours. I haven't tested that yet, but it's been pretty good so far. And it did come with a jelly case, which I haven't seen in a long time. And you're gonna need this because it's so hard to find any accessories for it right now. So having this case, I'm probably gonna keep it in here, super vital. So what's it like using it in 2025? Honestly, surprisingly pretty good. The moment I plug it to my MacBook, it opened on Apple Music, or I guess what used to be iTunes, pretty quickly. I flicked on the manage manually, and I can now drag and drop songs from my library or MP3s I might have on my Mac straight into the iPod, and it syncs immediately. That was quite surprising. All I had to do was get an adapter, obviously, because it's USB-C, to, all of that stuff. And I found that aspect actually pretty cool. I didn't have any MP3s on my computer, nor did I have many of my iTunes library synced or whatever. And I had to really think of what albums or what artists to put on this. It's very different from Spotify or YouTube Music or Apple Music, where it's like you're fed all of these different songs, albums, artists, and like you're just kind of consuming. And at some point, you kind of, I guess, enjoy a certain vibe on Spotify. But here it's like you have to be very mindful of like, what do I want to put in here? What do I want to go through the process of downloading or purchasing and stuffing into this 20-year-old piece of tech that I will bring today out when I go to the bank or whatever. That process is super different from how things are now, and it's something I have to revert back to. But it's super intentional. It's really intentional, which is pretty sick, to be honest. It did come with some pre-installed songs, probably to test it out or whatever. Lots of random Chinese songs that I do not know. I also picked up one of these. It is a Bluetooth receiver and transmitter from, this one's from Ugreen. Because while it is awesome to have a very tactile experience managing music with an iPod, there's still some times where it would be nice to have wireless capabilities. My car, for example, doesn't have an audio jack anymore, so I have no choice but to put it in via Bluetooth. While I can wire it into our sound system here at home, it's pretty cool to just have this, free, and like I can pass it around to people if they, want to put in music or play music at the party or dinner. It's just cool to have this thing freely moving around the house, I guess. Now the big question is why? Why in 2025 would you want an iPod? And I guess the reality is most people won't want or need one. And that's fine because the convenience of the music apps, streaming and all that is on the next level now, and we just really don't need to go through all of these hoops to listen to music. But sometimes when things get a bit too seamless and a bit too quick and a bit too easy again, you lose a bit of that appreciation for all of these things, you know, for this whole tactile experience, which I feel like the iPod has kind of given me again. As opposed to music just being tossed and tossed into your ears by this algorithm, right? Intentionally putting it on a device like this iPod, I don't know, makes it feel so real and deliberate. And that's something that I guess we miss a lot when it comes to streaming services. And while streaming apps really help you discover all these new artists rapidly, I feel like discovering them naturally and realizing that you want them on your iPod feels a little bit next level, where like you have to go through the process to find their music, buy it, and download it wherever, however you plan to. And manually putting it in your iPod just feels more intentional and more like throwing your support in a very real way to these artists. I don't know, it feels kind of cool. So should you buy one in 2025? I don't think I can answer that for you. This is not like a new piece of tech where I can rattle down the specs and compare with other tech, because this is one of one. The iPod is the iPod. And if you want to buy into that retro experience and this sort of deliberate tactile thing, then that's all up to you. Because at the end of the day, it does pose its own challenges. It doesn't have all of the accessories that you can think of out there. It's hard to find any of the accessories. You might have to buy wired earphones with a 3.5mm jack, because we don't have those anymore. And you will have to carry another cable if you bring this around to charge it. And you might not be able to plug it into a power bank that has faster charging, because it might break the thing. There are a lot of things to consider when it comes to handling this and taking care of it and choosing it. So at the end of the day, if you can shoulder the 7,000 peso cost of this thing and you want to experience all of these nostalgic elements and bring it back to sort of a tactile experience for you, then I say this is worth it. The music quality is great. The menus, everything still works so fine. It's still so intuitive in 2025. It doesn't feel too out of place, except for the fact that you have to manually load it with music. It all depends how far you're willing to go to bring back that tactile, deliberate sense of tech. This video is the start of my commitment to start posting here more often. Follow me for tech reviews, retro tech, and some investigative journalism, I guess, on everything tech and design. So if you haven't yet, please do subscribe. Hope to see you around more often. Peace.